Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, August 16th Town Board Work Session. I would like to have our clerk please call this meeting to order, please.
Attendance is Drawe.
Here.
Kohl.
Here.
Lee. Here. Ockenden.
Here.
All present.
Great. If somebody, maybe somebody want to grab that door? Thank you. Thanks. I see that people are outside. Thank you. Board, you have the approval of the work session minutes of the July 19th minutes before you. Is there any, I should wait till Candace comes back. Thanks.
I'll move the July 19th minutes.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Moved by Kohl, second by Ockenden. Roll call vote, please.
Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
All aye.
Okay, monthly reports are coming in. I see and most are in. Thank you very much, staff, for them. We have no guests this evening, and before we go into action items, because I have a couple announcements that will happen before our next town board meeting. So I was asked to make sure that it's that the community is well aware of that. And the Monroe County Department of Transportation is announcing a 5-mile line road milling and paving project. And that will be a mid-season addition to its milling and paving program. This project is scheduled to occur from Monday, August 21st through Tuesday, September 5th. The Monroe County DOT project team is making every effort to minimize impacts, particularly as the school year begins. The scope and the tentative schedule of these events are milling of the pavement is going to be scheduled for August 21st. Temporary markings, traffic loop repairs and adjustments following the milling during the weeks of August 21st to August 28th. And then, most important, the paving of the top course will be on Tuesday, September 5th. Traffic will be limited to northbound only on September 5th between Whalen Road and Liberty Street. Signage will be posted in advance and flaggers will be present to manage the traffic flow. And scheduling changes may occur in the event of inclement weather. Please direct any project questions to Monroe County DOT at 753-7732. Or you can contact them at mcdot@monroecounty.gov. And again, the county also will be having a message board up, I'm told, by the end of this week. So, and I believe Eric, Mr. Tait, our DPW director, will be working on this project with our teams starting this coming Monday. So we thank you for that, for helping that on that project. And my second note is just from the tax receiver's office. The school tax season is just around the corner. School tax bills will arrive soon in everyone's mailbox the first week of September. The town of Penfield will begin collecting school taxes on Friday, September 1st. The process for school tax collection is slightly different from the town and county tax collection. And these are some friendly reminders. If you choose to pay in installments, the first payment must be made by Friday, September 15th. Payments can be made for the exact amount, only be made for the exact amount indicated on the payment stub. And if that first installment isn't paid by Wednesday, September 20th, the installment option is no longer available at all. And full payment without interest is due by Monday, October 2nd. The tax office wants to offer a friendly reminder regarding the payment of taxes via your online banking account. These types of payments are highly discouraged. There is no guarantee from the bank or the town that the payment will arrive in a timely manner. These payments are delivered in envelopes that do not have a postmark, and if the payment is received after the due date, it is considered late, and additional interest fees will be due, regardless of the date on the check. So please feel free to contact us with any questions you might have at 340-8625. And this is just a friendly reminder from Chris Lysak, our receiver of taxes here in the town of Penfield. So this is also, along with the first, the 5-mile line project, this is also posted on our website. But just wanted to remind everybody, as this will happen before our next town board legislative meeting. And that's my announcements for you all. And so we're going to head into some action items, which we have quite a few. First one tonight is the Philbrick Park Bridge with Mr. Tait and Mr. Masterton. Thank you for coming tonight, gentlemen. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. As many members of the board may recall, this was previously discussed at the May 17th work session. This has also been a topic of conversation amongst the Trail Committee in the past. With that said, I know Mark on the screen has it kind of pulled up.
These aren't working.
For those of you that are familiar with the park and the layout, there are two bridges over there. One has already been updated and replaced with helical piles and an aluminum metal frame walking platform. The other is still a timber frame bridge, and as you can see, it does kind of squiggle and has settled over the years. With that, we wanted to look into options to repair and replace and try to make that a little more user-friendly, make that safer and a little more, I guess, just usable. Some of the pictures Mark's pulling up right now, as you kind of stand at one end of the bridge, before you even walk down, it resembles that of a funhouse bridge. The company that had previously done the other bridge for us has come out and taken a look. Tim Masterton was able to meet the company out there to take a look and get their recommendations for what could or should be done. Again, similar to the other bridge, they're recommending doing helical piles and then doing a platform. You basically kind of walk out and install it in different pieces as you go. With that said, wanted to share this with the board. This is what the proposed new bridge would look like. May not be quite as fun or much of an obstacle for those that are seeking thrills, but certainly a lot more user-friendly for those that are walking and hiking back through. With that said, they did give us a ballpark price. The price, the company itself is not under contract, so it would need to be publicly bid out, but to at least give us a sense of kind of what the project would estimate to be is a little over $300,000. Wanted to share that with the board just to have a sense of what exactly would need to be allocated for this, whether it be from fund balance or some other funding revenue.
And I know we've heard from many people from the Trails Committee. I've heard from a lot of residents that walking down there, that's questionable, that bridge, how it is now.
I know Parrington's looking to do some upgrades on the trail system on their side, and certainly don't want to have their side nice and then get to our side and not feel safe being able to cross that.
And it has been a topic of conversation for the Trails Committee in the past couple of years, too. So in the Town of Penfield Parks and Recreation Master Plan update, and this was 2019 for Channing Philbrick Park. Linda was on that. And yes, and I was on it. And one of the recommendations for that park was the bridges along Arundecoy Creek be identified for replacement. So that goes back to 2019 also. So it's not like a fresh new thing. It's been
Yes.
Yeah, it's been brought up for a little while.
We've been talking about it for a while. Board, do you have any questions? Candace?
So Tim, I was there for some of the discussions with the Parks and Trails Committee, and I'm largely supportive of replacing the bridge, and I think for obvious reasons. Can you tell me more about why this particular version was selected? Is it something that has to be integrated with other towns? It's this particular style that kind of makes me nervous, particularly the suspension portion of the bridge. There appear to be large gaps where...
So yeah, I don't know if judging by the pictures, they got to be ADA accessible, that kind of thing. The reason why we went with this company is because Eric mentioned the helicoil. That's realistically the only way to get it set into the ground on the side of the hill there without carving out the side of the hill. I know I'm assuming there's different options for handrails. There's more guidelines in between.
Yeah,
so
that's my concern.
Yes.
I get the flooring, ADA
Yes.
compliant. That's not my concern.
Yep.
It's the division between
Okay.
the parallel bars the large gaps. And
Yeah, that's-
And I mean,
That's something that we can add into the bid specs when we bid it out. As far as when we inspect playgrounds, they have to be a certain depth so kids either fall straight through or they don't get stuck. So that's part of the design of these. So we can.
I mean, these pictures themselves were just an example of what that system, could or would look like. Not saying that these are, the only handrails that are offered, but at least an example of a recent project that they've done.
Okay.
And these
So,
are
I don't know
also,
how the rest of the board feels. Again, I like a lot of features of the bridge, and, I'm sure children, parents, everybody should be aware when walking the trails, especially over the suspension portions. But I'm just thinking, like, pets can run off, children can run off. I mean, those look like pretty big gaps to me, particularly the lower region.
Yes, I believe that's something that we could add into the bid specs, that it has to
Okay.
be a certain space in between each railing, each guide rail, that kind
Okay,
of
for
thing.
safety.
And
For safety reasons.
I think I've seen those, I've seen those bridges on that same company, and they do different railings.
Okay.
So I think you were just taking a look
Yeah,
at
I'm sure they are. Again, these were just examples that the
Right.
company
Right.
had provided. As you see in the pictures that Mark's got pulled up or is pulling up,
And see,
there's pretty big gaps to begin with. So I
Right.
think anything
was-
is
We want
is
it
an
more
improvement,
safe.
but
was
I
just
certainly
on
agree
that the other day.
Yeah.
to try to minimize any
Yeah.
possibility of someone or something,
Right.
falling out or getting out of that. Certainly agree.
this is a preferred option with these helical coils. We did this for the bridge before it, similarly with the DEC, because it's a less impact on the side slope in the creek, any wetland areas, so we'll have to get some permitting from them.
Sure.
But with the equipment they've got, you can drive out onto it. They drill the next helical coils, put the next floor panel down, drive out a little further, put them down, so there's really minimalistic impact on the ground, but obviously
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, no, I appreciate that consideration, and of course, wanting to have as minimal environmental impact, and still wanting to be integral to the park. Just asking about guardrails.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yep.
I mean,
'Cause
as I said, it's not part of, the company and their quote itself is not on a contract, so I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
just sign
I
off on it
understand
today.
that.
I can certainly reach out, Tim and I can work with them to see what other options there are to incorporate into our bid specs.
So the last section that was done is basically the same way as this one would be proposed to be done?
Correct.
Same, but the surface is different, right? The upper, the walking surface, is it different than what's being proposed in this?
I believe they are both an aluminum tread walking platform surface.
Okay, that was going to be my next question, is what's being proposed here? I couldn't tell by zooming in if that's aluminum as decking, or is it some kind of a composite material? It looks like there's,
I think it's a combination. It's an aluminum frame with a composite decking
Okay.
on it.
gotcha.
So from a maintenance standpoint.
And in the
just
long run,
durability.
yeah, maintenance on our end, that would be easier than anything else that we could just, if there's a board that's cracked or something, we just replace the board instead of going through a whole aluminum process of trying to weld and that kind of thing.
I guess the-
So what's the action item?
I guess if the board is comfortable in potentially moving forward with this, Tim and I can work on the bid specs to be able to put that out for public bid. And Mark and I can start working with the DEC to obtain the permitting that would be required before anything. can
And is
be
that the
put
last
around.
piece, like after that bridge headed towards Parrington, does it kind of level out and you would have just a trail to match into Parrington?
Yeah, it levels out quite a bit. Then there is another little footbridge that is in decent shape, and then it leads to a timber frame that the Parks Department put in 2005 that is still in really good shape, and then that would lead to the Parrington end.
Their connection at the very end,
Yes.
where they're going to connect with us.
Parrington just started their project on their end to come from Spring Lake Park, so I attended a pre-con meeting for them, so they're going to be working on that in September or October. They've got to wait for some environmental stuff, again, to be by the creek is similar to we have to do.
I think I need to take the town board out for a walk
For a
out in
hike.
this, so you can see it.
Been a while.
So yes, at the end of that, it gets gradually easier to hike to the Parrington end, where they're doing other work.
This is definitely a needed, thank you. Good, thank you.
Tim,
for
I know you and the committee have been doing a lot of work on the trail system in Penfield. Some of them have been really great. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. It's all my guys.
They're good. Okay, and if that not, we'll look for,
It's not a motion, right? We're just agreeing that you go,
Yeah,
Agreeing
I
to
guess
go.
more or
Just a
less.
resolution
Action item.
coming.
Yeah, you'll see a resolution, Tim and I will work with the company to see whether we're able to have a resolution for the September 6th meeting to start seeking bids, or if we need a little additional time to push it to October.
I'd like to see that the guardrails are definitely included in the
Yep.
bid
Yes.
specs.
And I'll certainly get
Okay.
some additional examples from the company to
Okay,
share
that's
with you before we put anything into those bid specs.
I just didn't want to have to table it.
Nope,
but I'd
nope,
be
absolutely.
comfortable on that.
Great. Okay. All right. Then moving on, we have Mr. Tait again for DPW equipment. You have some exciting news to tell us about equipment needs that we're going to
Thank you.
get.
So as, I don't want to say it was even the last meeting, was able to discuss some equipment that we had budgeted in past budgets that is now available. I've been able to work with the same dealer that's under both New York State contract and Monroe County contract. They have a vehicle, the same vehicle that we had identified previously in the 2021 budget that would suit our needs. I'm looking for, I guess, the board's approval to be able to reappropriate that money from the general fund to be able to purchase that. It's a 1-ton truck with a stake body for a total cost of $72,969.50. And I think actually in the drop box that you were sent, there were 2 1-ton trucks. The other one was actually part of the 2023 budget. So that one's also a 1-ton, but with a dump body. So I guess that was already within planned and anticipated and budgeted for in the 2023 budget. So we're getting closer to getting caught up. The other vehicle, and as we're starting to prepare the 2024 budget proposal, we're talking as far as the highway department for our town street sweeper, looking to actually, or requesting to appropriate money to be able to actually put an order in for a sweeper now, that I'm hearing that the sweepers are upwards of a 3-year delay from the time you order until the time you actually receive. So knowing that it's such a delay, rather than waiting and delaying it any longer, looking to appropriate that money now.
You see the sweeper was on a contract too?
Yes, so the sweeper is part of its New York State contract. Onondaga County are the same contract in themselves. And the sweeper itself is what I was told to anticipate for budgeting purpose for next year would be about $340,000 to $345,000. However, by going off of this year's prices, which would be held and locked in, it would be $331,925. So it is a savings to be able to order it now and get it sooner as well.
And your plan is to surplus the current sweeper?
Yes. We've got 2. One is 5 years old right now. The other is almost 20.
Is the red one the newer one?
No, the red one is quite a bit
Yeah,
older.
Okay. I saw them both out.
This would be replacing the red one
Okay.
with an identical sweeper to our white one.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, I just have a couple
Sure.
Yeah.
general comments, I guess. I'm not opposed to the equipment purchases because they've been budgeted previously, and we're just catching up with a lot of the manufacturer delays. I understand that there might not be electrical sweepers, but I think in terms of the full suite of vehicles, I'd like to see if we can try to at least look for electrical vehicles or ways that we could make them more,
Yep.
But generally, these are very heavy-duty equipment, I understand, and then replacing a 20-year-old vehicle, of course, is prudent, and we've been maintaining a good record so far with very minimal worker compensation claims and injury claims, so I'm very supportive of having safe, fully functioning vehicles.
Yep. It was actually, kind of aside from this, as we're still working through the DPW design and plans, just trying to make sure that we've got accommodations for, any electric vehicles that we'd have in our fleet. We're just having that conversation yesterday and even as of this morning.
Great.
Okay. Any other discussion?
So I guess if the board's supportive, I would
Prepare a
prepare resolutions
resolution?
for the next meeting for those as well.
On those 3 items? 3, thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda is the Shadow Pines Development Plans Revised. And before we move to our next topic here, I just want to briefly give you a little update here before we hear from our town engineer. I first want to thank the community for the continued feedback on this project. I know that we've had countless conversations with many in our community, and my fellow board members have as well. Since early 2020, when a master plan for the Shadow Pines property was introduced, discussion about pickleball courts at Shadow Pines have been taking place. In a work session in March of 2021, Mr. Jim Froome was a guest in attendance for a discussion regarding the possible installation of pickleball courts at Shadow Pines. We fast forward to this year, and since I have been supervisor, we have met several times with Mr. Froome as well as others regarding the pickleball courts for the Shadow Pines property. In this time, we've also heard from those in our community who are very passionate about pickleball and its growing popularity. We've had a presentation on pickleball at a work session early this year, and we've held several opportunities for the public to provide feedback. We've also met with local pickleball groups, and we and staff here in the town have toured facilities recently built in Monroe County and Ontario County. So through all this, the goal has always been to create a plan that is best for everyone in Penfield. In August of 2022, this board approved the use of ARPA funds to help cover a portion of the cost of this project. Since that time, we've continued to refine plans to align with what our community wants. Since we've received additional feedback in May, we have developed a new proposal that has reduced the footprint and better preserves the natural beauty of Shadow Pines. At the time, it also provides us at the same time incredible new recreation opportunities. I've touched on this before, and I think it's very important to remember that as a board, we are working to finalize a plan which offers something for everyone in the community. This town is a collection of diverse voices and various interests, and it's our job, the job of all of us elected to do, for the town board to bring this all together in a plan that offers maximum benefit to the largest number of residents. And I'm confident in saying that as what you will see tonight in this updated plan. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Valentine, our town engineer, to give us an update on where we stand on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. So as you said, we've heard from the public, we've had feedback from the board, and then we've even gone out and looked at pickleball courts around the area. So they've highlighted, and the community has highlighted different courts that they've liked, not liked. So we traveled, quite extensively, myself, the supervisor, and the director of developmental services, looked at Parrington, saw the courts that they had there, went down to Canandaigua, saw the courts that they had in Canandaigua, and they're set up. The county has new facilities down in Powder Mills Park. We looked at what they had and how they best fit their area as part of our plan, and how all those
Mendon Ponds. That was
Mendon Ponds, excuse me, thank you.
Yep.
So as part of that, just to kind of do our homework and our due diligence, and then working with BME Associates, who is on contract with us working on this project, and feedback from the board, we're putting forth, on behalf of the board, this new plan here. So one of the items we heard in concerns was the number of trees coming down. So we've subsequently slid the plan further to the south. So looking to preserve that tree line along Atlantic Avenue, keep those trees that are there. As we've slid that down, we've also taken out the areas. Initially, we had shown some potential play areas or open field areas to the west. So we've been eliminating those out of this proposed plan going forward. So initially, we were looking at 20 to 30 acres that included some grading berms along Atlantic Avenue just for aesthetics, some stuff along Wayland Road. We've shrunk that down, and now we're down to a 7-acre area that we're moving forward with and proposing with this. We've switched and moved it to a center island. The initial layout, again, further to the north, had a northern driveway and a southern driveway coming out. Now we're showing one entrance in the middle, kept the parking lot the same, keeping the pavilion and the bathrooms in the middle, having 2 areas for playgrounds for a tot lot, and then slightly older children, making those some inclusive playgrounds, to help all abilities and all ages of kids with those. Have a small picnic area. It's hard to see at this size and scope, but showing some picnic tables, benches, having the parking lot, and then with the parking lot oriented as it is, have the 2 inclusive courts this board is moving forward with, and then 8 additional courts. So we're showing a 10-court layout. It shows a pavilion in the middle, and then we even show some benches around so people can sit and watch. The existing pathway kind of ends in this area, connecting that pathway around, so as the pedestrians walk the property, they continue to have the walkability to walk, bike, around the property, and then show the pond where it has been along the frontage of the property. So this shows here is kind of where it sits in that space. The majority of it is in the fairway of what I believe is hole number 2, so it's minimal impact on the trees that are needed to be removed. There are some periphery trees at the edge, but the dark green indications here are trees we're looking to put back in. So we're proposing to put many more trees in than we're looking to take out as part of that. I do have one other schematic to bring up. So in helping the board as well as the public to look at what this may look like, how it fits out in the field, this graphic here shows the actual stakes we've put out in the field. So we went out there, took our GPS, identified those corners. This is that same entrance. These are the same parking lot corners. The playgrounds would be tucked into these open space areas here, and then physically stake out in the field so you can walk it. The Parks Department went out, thank you to them, and mowed that area as well, so you can kind of stand there and look at where this would fit, how this fits into that property, and the minimal impact. So again, we're showing a 7-acre development with this, which of the 212 acres takes it down to 3% of the total property that would be impacted by this new proposal.
Okay. So thank you. Now the board.
I'll put the sketch back up, and if the board has further comments, questions, and then obviously we can make it available. I believe we're going to put it up on the website tomorrow for the public to view it. We'll put that other schematic up there that shows the corners, the stakes. They are labeled out there, so if you go out there, it says the same right on there. Southeast corner of pickleball courts, southwest corner, so you can read and see and kind of, better visualize in the field, exactly where you're standing as part of that layout.
In posting the schematics online, are you going to be showing the original bid juxtaposed to the new proposal?
We can. We just have to be very clear that obviously we don't want to get people confused or scared between the two. We can make sure that, work with our communications team to very closely, share that and explain how one is phased into the other. Obviously this is a much smaller footprint than that, but make sure that the public is very clear this is, what's being proposed now.
I kind of like one. I like one because I think that's what got a lot of confusion out there, especially in the media. They're saying that there's 16 courts when there's 10 because they're looking at a different thing, I got to make sure we have the correct one proposal because you don't want people to go, oh, well, we had that one, is that one? They get confused. I think it'd be clear because this is our final, I hope. I mean, we've gone through this for months and come to this decision. Let's leave it is the one that we're looking at. Do you disagree?
Well,
Can we label it?
yeah, and I appreciate where you're coming from, because there has been a lot of confusion and or some misrepresentations, right? And I think, though, my intent in wanting to see kind of where we started versus where we are now, because we haven't yet voted on the new proposed bid, right? Sure. And so I'd like at least everybody to kind of appreciate where we started from and the progression it's taken to kind of balance a lot of the competing interests or differing voices, and that we're really trying to optimize the space for the enjoyment of as many as possible. But I think, taking into context that we're having this conversation while also reviewing the comprehensive plan and hearing a lot about the history of Shadow Pines, preserving open space, honoring the comprehensive plan, and just the need to preserve Shadow Pines for also other sports and other recreational activities. So I kind of wanted to keep the conversation in context and have a more cumulative analysis to it. So that it was just, but I understand. We
Clearly labeled. Yes, right. We'll do that.
I think in order to move forward, we do need it to be accurate. So if it's not able to be done,
Sure,
and an
communications.
intelligible-
Watermark over top of it or
Sure,
something.
communications and website team, they do a fabulous job already. I'm sure they can.
We can work
be able
with
to show
them
that.
yeah.
on that.
Because I think, again, it's been like months. Like I feel like I could have had 2 more babies in the time Shadow Pines gets done, right? And I think it's just hearing a lot of different groups, and those who come to participation sessions, those who don't, and those who kind of wish to discuss more privately, right? And hearing just, again, it really dawned on me that there's a definite need for recreational facilities for our aging or senior residents. But I've heard from so many pickleball people that it's not just for seniors and aging persons, right? It's a sport enjoyed by all. So I don't dispute the appeal of pickleball, but I think the original footprint or whatever it was 2-3 years ago, it's changed now, right? The use of that park has now changed, and the footprint of Penfield has changed in different ways too. And so wanting to preserve more acreage if we can in the heart of Penfield, it really did make me think twice, right? And I know that the board and our department staff have gone through a lot of great lengths to kind of make as many accommodations as possible. So I just want folks to appreciate that it's been a very long conversation and a very invested conversation.
Sure.
That's fair.
Mark, can you just confirm the pavilion, the main pavilion?
Yes.
Is that replicated after something else we currently have?
And it's kind of similar to what we have at Rothfuss Park now. So there's a bathroom on one end and then an open-air shelter on the backside. So it's kind of in that vein there. This lower shelter between the courts would just kind of be an open-air sunshade area. But this upper area here would have bathrooms on the south end. And then it would have an area, a covered area you could rent out. You could have picnic tables. People could, utilize that to be out of the weather a little bit. But it's kind of after our Rothfuss piece. I'm sorry.
Sorry, totally.
And
No, go ahead, you're fine.
Sorry, and I wanted to confirm, I had to zoom in a lot on the PDF. Those gray rectangle pieces, those are added seating areas. I think we heard that pickleball is a very social sport, so we've increased the number of benches and right, gathering spaces around the courts. I'm just confirming that that's what it is. They're not designated for any other functional or
Correct.
town maintenance.
Yeah, this is still a concept plan, and I'll get into, that in a minute, but, just showing, again, an open space area, as they said, so social sport, social area, providing more area between the courts, providing benches here, providing benches along the north end. Once we get into a final design, so once the board approves this concept plan layout, we've got to go back to BME. They're going to come back with a proposal to complete the project. Again, this is a bit of a redesign. They're going to have to go back, redo the grading, redo the utility design, take it back to the agencies. So there's going to be, between this approval, several months of time that they need to do their actual, go back to the drawing board, do design work. They're not starting from zero, but they've got some work to redo, regrade it, redesign it, do the final landscape plan. We can look at exact positioning. So this is, again, just kind of a pretty picture. They'll do an exact layout of where all those benches go, how many, where they sit. The board would then approve that. So I'm hopeful, if we're ready to move on this in September, they do their design September, October. We may be talking about this again in November and December, and then vote to put it out to bid before the end of the year is kind of the rough time frame that I'm hoping for. But again, that's got to go to other agencies. It's got to go back to the DEC. It's got to go back to the county DOT. So those agencies and that factor is kind of something that we can't control, but I'm hopeful that it's a revision for them. It's not a brand-new project for those agencies, so hopefully they're timely with that. But that's to give the public and the board an update that once the board says, yes, this is exactly what we want, move forward, we're not going to be digging on Monday. We've got a little time that we've still got to do design, get it out to bid, so it would likely be a start of construction in spring of 2024.
Mark, can you speak to the addition of the number of trees that we're adding into the plan?
Yes, again, I mean, these are taken off of the original designs. They put them on here, so those are maybe not, we haven't identified the species, but there's probably a dozen trees as we've walked it, we've staked it, that would unfortunately be impacted by this just from the grading that it needed the utilities to bring into it. But here, obviously, we're showing 50 trees that, would go back in. So we're proposing to plant many more than we're taking out. We understand, the need, the want to have it, tree-like, to have it, to keep that feel, to have the buffering, from the wind. And, so we're trying to preserve, as many trees as we can that are existing, and then obviously planting many more to go back in as part of this development, and that's
These are
part of that package.
good-sized trees. They're not.
Well, when I put in bare root in, I mean,
They're
they're
not
not saplings.
No.
We'll put in, 6-7 foot trees, and
Right.
A couple of years they'll have grown up and reestablished. And
also, Mark, can you speak to the piece of where, the south of those potential, where the courts are, is room for, if we want to grow this and end up wanting to put,
yeah, I mean, all of this, and
more
we've
courts
looked
in.
at before, is if they wanted to add more courts, those could be added. There was talk, and there's some open areas here that, could be future play areas that's needed, and, future decisions down the road, so it doesn't preclude that. Obviously, we're trying to minimize the impact, with that now, and could come back in the future, but, yeah, you could easily add courts on here, you could add them onto the backside
Okay.
of any of these pieces here. So we've kept the size of the pond sized for the overall development, so if
Okay.
and when things change,
So-
we don't have to go back and change the pond again.
Right.
You design for the, we'll say, the worst case, or,
Right.
the most impact, the pond's there, and then as you add elements, we're covered on that, so that would,
So with the walkways, we're fine to still have opportunities for.
yep. So I say this existing walkway actually stops here now. It's a paved
Okay.
path that doesn't continue. We're looking to pick that up, continue it, loop it around the project, excuse me, screen, and tie that. So we're looking to tie those pathways back in as part of it. So the walkers that are out there
Sure.
that enjoy it today, we're not going to, isolate them. They can walk around this, walk around the new pond, have landscaped areas that, kind of tie it all in. The playgrounds would tie into that as well. So hopefully it fits right back in with what's there today, and kind of feels at some point that it had always been there.
So I think that's actually one significant change that the board has done with this proposed plan, right? Removing the open fields, decreasing the footprint, or decreasing the number of courts for the overall reduced footprint. And I think the idea, which I understand and agree with, is to make this more of a phased development and not to clear-cut swaths of areas without having at least a reasonable timeline to build this within the construction months in Rochester, right? And so I think at least the layout now, it doesn't preclude future development should the need or desire for more courts or more fields or so forth.
No,
right?
we've accommodated that end of there, so it could expand and grow in the future. Obviously, it can also accommodate other sports and activities, as there other needs or wants from the community come about.
Right. And I think one other thought, we've talked about this with parks as well. There was a lot of feedback with other tennis courts or other courts that are lined for pickleball that are falling in disrepair. I think we've tried to run status updates because I think part of developing these courts, I don't want those other courts to fall into greater disrepair. We need to take care and maintain those as town-owned property. So I think it has to be looking at what other courts can still be outfitted for pickleball, or if we decide to strip some of the existing tennis into pickleball, right? But still wanting to take care of the other courts that we own, right?
Correct. Yeah, right now, we're still on a about 7-year resurfacing schedule. We just did Harris Whalen 2 years ago, I believe it was 2 years ago, and we did add pickleball lining to that, so those are multi-use courts. Greenwood is next on our agenda to get resurfaced in the next year or two. So, and then we'll add pickleball, so it's we could add pickleball striping to that, so that'd be a multi-use type.
Or I guess we could do an impact analysis to see, can we remove the tennis lines and flip those to dedicated pickleball courts? I think that was a conversation that we had in the committee just to.
Sure. That's something we can continue to have a conversation later about as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Continue it.
But I like the phased development approach so that we can kind of, again,
Yes.
take into consideration and accommodate other needs. I'm sorry, Mark, I know that you spent a lot of time on this, and I think this is just a personal preference. The board knows that that the inclusive playground especially means a lot to me, and I think folks just said, oh, there's a playground here, there's a top playground here, there's a playground a mile away, but can you, again, louder for the people in the back, can you please tell us what is going to be different about this playground, and what does it mean to have an inclusive playground?
Yes, maybe Tim can jump in as well, but inclusive playground is children of all abilities. So not only counts handicap accessibility, there's areas you can touch and feel, there's one for audio, there's sound ones. I know I've been to other ones that, they have different elements in there, so it's not just handicap accessibility, but it has things for, kids with, ADHD or, other abilities that, it engages them as well into play, and then integrates it with everybody all together. So these would be fenced-in areas, have a gate at the front, but then kids of, all ages, abilities, can be incorporated in.
Yeah, a lot of the new designs on the playgrounds that I've talked to vendors about, there's the term, it's play together. So if there's two children of different abilities, they can still go up the stairs together or ramps together, then go down the same slides together. So they're playing together, not separated, where one goes off to one end, the other one goes off to the other, and they're just separated. So they can actually play together. There's also new designs about quiet space areas that they can, kids can, if they're too overwhelmed, they can go hang out in. That's all inclusive.
And so there's inclusive playgrounds at Miracle Field. I think we are trying to have the inclusive playground in Penfield at Rothfuss Park, but I've been to that section multiple times, and like you said, that inclusive playground is separate from the other playground. And I know Jack's Place was built after the fact, but it just proves the point that we want to have integrated play for neurotypical and neurodiverse, right, or neurowild. And I know Bob and I have talked about this offline. Canandaigua is investing millions in their inclusive playground, and it's just a beautiful thing. And so, again, Mark, I know you've spent a lot of time on this. Can you just please add the word inclusive to the playground so that folks that have just a first glance at it can understand that it's not just another playground, but that we are really trying to make Penfield this area where we're hoping families will gather, players will gather, everybody to enjoy Shadow Pines, but for it to be just a place that just, again, embraces
for everyone.
For everyone, and makes it inclusive.
That's very good. Yeah.
All right, I'll get off my soapbox.
That's good, that's good.
And I think it's important to note that two of these pickleball courts are inclusive pickleball courts, and that term inclusive has been used differently in presentations that we've received. So
Yes.
I think just to make that clear, just like with the 8 other courts, we don't really know, the demand for either type of court, right? In this first phase, it's kind of, you build what you need to, I guess, is the approach, right? While keeping it, keeping it reasonable. At what point does the communities, including ours, have so many courts that they're not all getting used like they might be today or they were last year? Maybe you can refresh when you visited some of those other locations as to how many courts of each the other ones had.
The other, I did not see any inclusive. I didn't go out and measure. The inclusive, basically the physical court you play on is the same size. The area around it is larger to accommodate wheelchairs, accessibility around it. We didn't go out and measure, but I didn't notice any, to me, would be inclusive courts. Most areas, the one in Bend and Ponds, there was 4 new courts that they had there. Perrington had 6 courts. The most we saw going to Canandaigua was 8 courts. We went on a Monday. We went in the morning. We wanted to be out there when people were using them to see. They were, being used. They were active, but the most we saw was 8. Here we're showing 10, but I didn't see any specifically inclusive courts, but we've located them right by the parking lot. So if anybody is in a wheelchair, has any mobility issues, they've got a the physical plane surface is the same. The area around it is just a little bit larger to facilitate or, allow them, to access and to be able to, maneuver a little bit better on the court area. So those are the two right at the parking lot. People of, of every ability can play on them. They're not, exclusive. And then, adding in the other standard size courts would be the rest. So that would give us a total of 10.
And I think, Debbie, you had met with another pickleball association that actually asked for increased accessibility for widening the
They did,
pathways.
yes.
Which it's really, so that's why, Linda, I thought it might be good to juxtapose that. These are really small, seemingly small changes actually on the bid, but to illustrate the point, we've rotated the direction of the pavilion, widened the pathways to make it dually accessible. Positioning closer to the handicap spaces. We went at lengths with council to further research ADA compliance, but to be more forward-thinking of this, and also to allow for future growth, right? So I think these are all important things. We've made a lot of changes. It's not just preserving trees. It's
You say this, it'd be good to have some kind of verbiage with the diagrams that explain the reasoning, especially about when you talk about the inclusivity of the pickleball courts and the playground. That this is something that's a priority for this board. This is something we looked at that we think is important. But the other things about, the trees, less trees coming down and all that, that was a lot of coming from the public. A little verbiage to explain why the changes were made might be helpful. It doesn't have to be a long-winded one, but I think, a couple of paragraphs of showing the changes, since you want to keep the old one to the new one, it'd be nice to, so why'd they do that?
right. Well, I
Especially like
see our communications director in the back, so hopefully he's taking notes.
Especially like the playgrounds, right? We heard a lot from the public that the playgrounds were too
Exactly.
close to Atlantic Avenue and didn't feel it was a good
And now
fit.
it's fenced in, it's an
Yeah.
inclusive playground.
And it's moved further south,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
Sure. One thing I just wanted to add too, we had heard in the past that is from some folks that to have any kind of tournaments, we needed 12 to 16 courts, but we visited in Canandaigua, and they had just last weekend, and on their 8 courts, they were able to have a tournament. So I don't know that we can't, that this isn't, that these aren't enough courts to start. We could, potentially have a tournament here. So I think just to clarify that, so folks know that, we do, 10 courts would be enough to, to hold a tournament per se, if that's what we wanted to have, or someone wanted to have here in Penfield. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I know that I'm hearing a lot of people saying that, you need 12, or I don't know what the magic number is, 12 or 16. But just so you know that this is still, and that the town of Canandaigua did have they did host a tournament on 8 courts. So just to FYI to share with everyone.
Linda, you were with a committee, right? And they had talked about just whether or not hosting tournaments routinely would be the desire. Was it in the master plan, or was there a question? Am I remembering correctly? I thought a question you had fielded through.
I don't.
Okay.
No. I think what Debbie's saying is pretty good, because that's explaining that things can be done with less, than we've heard. But, yeah, I'm not sure what you're
Okay, I
referring
could
to.
be-
I don't know. There's been so many conversations, so many.
Okay. Well,
Could have been me.
so
Could have been someone else.
so this will go up on the website tomorrow, you said?
Yes.
Okay, and I know we've already been hearing different comments, and it's been highlighted in different forums. So, Debbie, can you just make clear we're continuing to receive comments?
Yes, so-
It's not being voted on tonight.
No, it's
Can you
not in the
talk
future.
next steps?
We will be taking emails, comments, phone calls here in the town. People want to express their comments on this proposed plan, and my hope is that we would hopefully maybe move forward with this proposal to bring it up to, if the board agrees, to put it towards a resolution to
go out to bid.
put it out to bid for the not out to bid, to have a BME go to
Continue
bid
with
on,
the final
continue on the design for us of the plan.
So at the
And
next ledge session, there's an opportunity for public participation.
As there always
Right.
is at our legislative meetings, yes. where at that time, if somebody wanted to speak on this topic as well as any other topic, they could. Absolutely.
So I appreciate the desire to keep moving the project forward because, and wanting to expedite the construction of the courts. I still think it would be worthwhile to allow for an opportunity before voting on it. I just submit that for everyone's consideration. That being said, I think this new proposal does balance a lot of the interests, and I would feel a lot more comfortable with this proposed bid. So if it were to come before me to vote, I'm not indicating to the board that I would vote it down. I'm just saying I would like to submit for consideration to have a formal opportunity to hear.
Board, how is everyone else feeling about the proposal?
Well, if we get it out there and our communications person gets it out there on the website and we have it on social media that this is the plan, please go look at it. If you have comments or whatever. We'll be getting comments all the way to September 5th unless
Right.
there's some, or 4th. But what, you know,
Right. Potentially,
that Wednesday.
if we wanted to get to bring a proposal to take it out to bid, to prepare the design so we could take it out to bid, that would be for as Mr. Valentine said, the September 6th meeting, and then to vote on that, we'd still have, potentially another 2 months, right, before we'd ever hear back on.
Yeah, Mr. Valentine, you said 30 to 60 days potentially for the regulatory review and approval process?
Yeah, so, I mean, depends where we go. We'll have the public participation on September 6th. The board could, wait. We'll talk about it again on the 20th. At the meeting, you could, proceed at a special ledge session on the 20th if you wanted to, authorize, BME to go with the design at that point.
Okay.
Probably looking at 2 months, my guesstimation, for them to do their design, and then, as I said, that'd put them end of September, so if they do October, November, it'd be before this board, either late November or December to actually, put it out to bid. Just one other point, did want to share, we'll also be having a video as well, so we did some video on site. That'll be posted online tomorrow as well.
Okay.
So the supervisor and I went out there, talk a little bit about the area, talk about, what the stakes are, what those are as well. So hopefully between the many points and interest, we'll reach all the people that, have interest in this project, interest in Shadow Pines itself. So, and then obviously we'll, gather other, comments we have, and then the board can, take those in and then decide.
And I'm certainly not trying to be a roadblock. I think, like Linda said, so long as there's the ample education, and I know that, Debbie, you've been having a open door policy on these. I know we've been fielding multiple comments, all of us, throughout the day. So I know it's out there, and I hope people can appreciate that it is trying a willing compromise. So
I would like to entertain, if a board member wanted to move this forward, to bring it to a proposal, so we could go to proposal for the design, because I think that we've talked about this long enough, but I don't know,
so you'd like a resolution to be prepared to update, BME to update the plan to this plan, and what else? Mark? And then, can you put the bid and then go out to bid? Can that all be in the same package? Wasn't that going to be that way before?
No, I mean, so
one
we
less
need,
resolution in there.
yeah, we're waiting for a new proposal from BME, so they're waiting to kind of hear how this conversation goes tonight. If this is
Right.
what we're moving ahead with, they'll put a bid proposal forward back for the board to consider. Obviously, it's an additional cost fee for them to do the redesign, so then once they do that, they'll go to the design. We'll come back where we were back in March or April. We had a final design package ready to go out to bid. This board would then again need to say, yes, this is our final package. yes, we want to put this out to public bid for contractors to bid on.
So it's two different-
Two different actions. So one is to authorize
Right.
BME to move forward
Yeah.
with the design, and then the second would be, once we have that final design package
Well,
together, the board wants
I
to.
move
put it
that
out.
we go ahead with the design for the BME to go update the design for the September 5th meeting, be that resolution. 6,
Do I have a?
Wednesday, what is September 6th?
It's September 6th.
6th,
It's
thank
for the September 6th meeting, right.
I'm sorry, can I just ask a quick
Sure.
question? Pete, can you help me think this through? So we have a current bid that was already prepared by BME, and
A bid, well, so right now, they have to do redesign work. And I don't
Yes.
believe that was in the original scope of what they were tasked to do. They already kind of basically just about completed that because they prepared a set of drawings and plans to go out to bid. And then the town board said, time out, let's go back to the drawing board. So they kind of redid these concepts. And then the next step from what Mark is saying is that BME would then need to redraw these with
Sure.
a set of engineered plans.
Sure.
And so what the motion is to have staff prepare a resolution for consideration by the board at the next ledge session on the 6th to authorize BME to go forward with the design work.
Yeah.
And then once that design work is done, and then you have a new set of plans, then there would be another opportunity to then authorize the bid.
either bid. By moving forward with the new design, it doesn't negate the existence of the prior bid, right? By voting on this measure, does it take the prior bid off the table?
Yeah.
Well, it never went out.
There was
so
never a
there
bid.
wasn't a
So,
bid.
There's
oh,
never,
okay, right, I'm sorry. So it wasn't awarded, but
Right.
it doesn't,
So those plans are still out there, and they're probably could be finalized and go out to bid. I don't know if they're finalized or.
Yeah, I mean, this board never decided to put it out to public bid, so we got to that point, and the board said, no, let's take another look at this, so those aren't out in the public anywhere, so that,
They never
Yeah.
finished
So
putting the
it's-
packet together.
I mean, they had everything ready to go, yeah, the specs were there, the plans were there, everything was completed, we just didn't put it out to the public.
And so what could happen is here if you authorize staff to prepare this resolution, then you have it ready to go. So you could hear the public participation, which I believe is at the beginning of the meeting.
It is.
yes.
And then you take that into account and you decide whether or not to vote in favor of that resolution at that time. Because right now, you're just voting to have staff prepare the resolution. At the ledge session is when you would vote yay or nay on whether or not you're going to agree to that resolution.
So I understand that procedurally. I think I'm asking for, can you have two, understanding that the bid has not been awarded for the actual construction or design. We haven't spent any money on awarding that. So we just still have the original bid packet. Is that negated by virtue of this other design resolution moving forward? Can
don't
you
think
have two?
so.
Okay, so can we just make sure on the wording? Because then I think I can get comfortable. We can run these parallel, keep it moving. I'm okay. I'm, again, not trying to be a roadblock. I just want to make sure that, because people are going to be digesting this tonight, tomorrow. I just want to allow for information to be digested.
Right, so this isn't going to say,
It won't negate.
it's not going to vacate the prior, BME did all the work and they have they have a design that I think was ready to go out the next day if this board said, let's go out to bid. So, but they need to spend time and we need to authorize them to proceed with making engineered plans
Sure,
on these,
okay.
so.
Okay.
But, so that would need to be done if you're going to proceed with this revised plan.
Okay.
And that's what Linda's
Okay.
motion is.
yeah. Is there a second?
So Linda's made a motion. Is there a second to move?
Yeah, and I'll second that. I think it's not too different than what we actually just kind of did, where we had this in front of us. We heard the public's input, and then we held off on the next steps. I think that still gives us the opportunity to do that if there was some, surprise that we needed to make a change. So I will second Linda's motion.
Okay. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Drawe,
Aye.
Kohl,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is our, again, I should tell everybody still, you can again, as Candace had mentioned too, on that, residents, you can still continue to contact and email us, phone, as well with your comments going forward on this. Next, on the
Thank you,
comprehensive
Mr. Valentine.
plan.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mark, yeah. Plan revisions, and I know you're filling in for Miss Ivers, who's on vacation. Thank you again for doing that.
Sure. Just one moment. Pull this up. So just have a quick kind of review of what a comp plan is, just as some kind of education, for the public of what a comp plan is, what it isn't. We've made some changes from the last time. The revised comp plan is on the webpage already, as well as kind of a Reader's Digest. The plan is done in InDesign, so it's a little hard. You can't do track changes, so you can't see exactly what was done, what was not done. So Carrie and Doug did a great job going through, making changes based on board's comments, public's comments, incorporating those in. So just reviewing a little bit about, for the public's knowledge, what a comprehensive plan is. So it's a community-based document, identifies the overall direction, recommendations related to the community's current and future needs. Serves as a framework and a basis for future land use and zoning decisions, and it provides a foundation for municipal policy creation, budgets, and decision-making. The document is aimed at ensuring the long-range protection, enhancement, growth, and development of the community, and addresses a broad range of topics that obviously are town-specific. So this is very specific to our town, our areas, our business districts, and parkland areas, all parts of the community. And it also serves as a resource for future funding. So a lot of times when you look for grants, they want to see, was it contemplated in the overall comprehensive plan? So again, this document isn't something we just put on a shelf. Once it's done, it sits there. This is something we continually, in the planning department, engineering department, look at. This board, refers back to, future boards will look back to and say, this is, or was the vision at the time looking forward. Some of the things it's not, and we've had a lot of requests for more highly prescriptive, detailed information to be in the document. This kind of provides a general overall scope and vision for the community, but not detailed, instructions on each different item. It's not intended to focus on one specific area. You can do, different plans, area studies, but those are, subsequent documents to this. And again, any times there, zoning amendments, town regulations, local laws, those are done in a different, function than this document here. So while a comprehensive plan is not required for a community, as it says, Town Law 272-A provides the framework for it. Penfield has a long history of doing comprehensive plans, updating them frequently, as we're doing here. I think, as we've shared before, I think this will set us up to be kind of the mid-decade setup for going forward, which will be better. We're still waiting for information out of the 2020 census, so we always kind of fall on the 10-year. The census data comes out after it. You've got to go back and update the document, so you're often looking back at census data that's 10 years old. So this will set us up for a 2035 re-up for the comprehensive plan. That way, hopefully, we have the census 2030, we get the data, and then now you're working with real data as we're looking towards making decisions for the community going forward from there. So just a quick little background, recap. So we had the draft documents together. We put them out to the public in April, May of this past year. We conducted a public hearing on July 5th of this year. We've got a lot of comments, feedback, both at the public hearing as well as emails, letters, phone calls since then. So we've continued, making revisions to the document from that. So overall from then, obviously made some grammatical, user-friendly readability changes to that. Not going to get into, to those. There are some more substantive changes to the policy. Go through those, in just a moment. And then modified the implementation section, talking about how to better, convey our policies and then monitor those, implementations as we go forward. And then also have some more reference to some of the grassroots groups that we've worked with and, provided, benefit to the community as we've moved forward. So some of the more specific items, and again, on our website, we've kind of got Page number 2, this is what's changed. Page number 9, this is what's changed, so people can go through their granular, items. We're not going to, go through that here tonight with the board. But overall, in sections of agriculture, we looked at, modifying the recommendations related to renewable energies, and then added references to future open space planning efforts. And I know open space is, a key item and something that, is of interest to all. We've done an open space plan in the past, so this document will reference, and does reference, updating the open space plan, continuing that going forward. It doesn't have the open space plan in this document, as it shouldn't. It recommends, and that's one of the recommendations coming out of this, is to update that open space plan going forward. It also talks about protecting our natural resources. So as is already currently, the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee, formerly Conservation Board, is looking at the Tree City USA designation as directed by this board, and moving forward with that, and we'll be back with that to this board at some point, hopefully in the near future. We've added more to the sustainability section, so added information looking at priorities to climate resiliency, participation in local state climate action efforts. The county already has theirs underway, and we're looking to partner with them on that. And then modified language related to sustainability practices and encouraging green infrastructure. And then also looking at what future land uses are. So as our community continues to grow, we had some descriptors to those land use categories. Some people asked and had questions about what low density development is, what medium density development is. So we added some descriptors to that to say, how does that equate to our code? Is that R120? Is that R115? So just to give people some references to that. And then added a section about future zoning and land use planning initiatives, in there. So tonight, if the board, and obviously the board has comments, going forward on this document, but looking if the board is ready to set another public hearing for September 6th. So I think we can do that by a roll call vote tonight to set that public hearing for September 6th. Again, this document is out there already. The board has a copy of it. It is available on our website, so people can go review it and then obviously provide any emails, phone calls, comments, between now and September 6th, and obviously show up on September 6th for that public hearing to provide, further comments back to the board. Depending upon where and, what comments we receive, the board still needs to complete the secret process for this, and then eventually move towards adoption of the plan, hopefully sometime late summer, fall, whatever, as we move forward. Mm-hmm. So that was, again, thank you to Carrie and Doug for putting that
together.
Carrie putting the slideshow together, Doug and Carrie for doing all their hard work on the document and making those changes, and I'm just to fill in tonight to.
I'm going to make sure that Carrie's here to
pass it
present
forward
for the hearing.
She'll tell me what I did wrong, and
No, you did.
she'll be here for the public hearing, and and obviously all staff's available to take comments in the meantime.
And I think it's important to note, thank you, Mark, you did a wonderful job presenting it, we want to make this as simple and easy for the residents in the community to understand what a comprehensive plan is. We continue to receive many comments, and again, the changes and updates are done, as you can see on the website. So I think that unless the board, if the board has comments and concerns, I know.
No, we have to make a resolution, though, for this public hearing, right? For the
We do have to do that.
September 6th.
Well, we don't have legislative time to do it. I mean, I think we need a roll call
You would
vote.
want to vote tonight to have a.
You can make a vote to set it,
Yeah,
but
we do have a vote.
to have
Okay.
it September 6th, we don't
Okay,
have a
no
legislative meeting to
resolution,
set
we
the-
just moved to set the public hearing
If the
for
board is-
September 6th. I move that we set September 6th for the public hearing on the comprehensive master plan.
I'll second that.
second.
And I'll say the summary changes were really nice, and I think trying to, because this is a weighty document, it's like 162 pages.
a lot.
And trying to compare just, again, the growth and changes of Penfield in the last 15 years that this effort has been, I know it's a requirement, but just seeing the changes. And I thought it was nice touches to add the growth of and commitment to ongoing sustainability, climate resiliency. I really liked those changes, Mark. And I see the focus on shadow pines, and then including the honorable mention for Friends of Shadow Pines and that effort. I thought that was a nice touch. Thank you for doing that.
I think we've taken, I think we do a wonderful job of taking people's comments and incorporating them in this, not only this plan, but others as well. I mean, so I think that's, and thank you to staff. They worked a lot, really hard on this. So Mark too, as well. Mark and Carrie and Doug, I know they sat down here for hours working on these, so thank you for that. Okay, so moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Drawe,
Aye.
Kohl,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
Thank you. So, okay. Moving right along we're back to Mr. Tait with the Clark House update. I'm so excited.
Thank you. So as Mark's pulling the plans up, I know they had been sent. Sure. As Mark's pulling the plans up on the screen, as kind of talked between this board as well as the Historic Preservation Board, there's been a lot of feedback related to the footprint and layout of the building. I know the Historic Preservation Board had comments. Those were all shared with Bergman, the engineer that's been working on the design of the building, and as well as some coordination between Bergman and actually Barrow Architecture that specializes in historical buildings. So one of the biggest changes with the actual footprint of the building was actually kind of a 90-degree rotation of the bathrooms, the exterior accessible bathrooms, with the idea that it kind of pinched that throat connection between the actual new proposed lodge addition and the existing Clark House to try to show a little more separation. The other change, as you can kind of see, and maybe it's most noted from the from number 3, the north elevation. They actually brought the overall roof line down so that the original homestead house itself is still the tallest on the site, and that it brought the overall massing down. There were some kind of cosmetic changes as far as the windows, just to make sure that they weren't contradicting from one to the next. And then overall, within the actual rendering itself, Bergman actually came up with 2 different options to share with the Historic Preservation Board to get feedback. While the overall building itself, the footprint, shape, and size was the same, the biggest change is, and what the Historic Preservation Board preferred, was option updated concept scheme A2.1. And the really notable on that, in that view from the southeast, they made not only the connection, kind of that throat piece between the two, the original house and the lodge, a dark gray siding material, but also that whole eastern side leading up to the main entrance into the lodge itself would be the same gray. I know in this kind of rendering and view, they did try to show, have some sunlight, so it does cast some shadows. It is intended to be the same gray. It's not black on one wall and then gray on another.
Yeah.
It would be a consistent gray siding through there. That was, I guess, preferred and accepted by the Historic Preservation Board, pending wanting to review the actual final material selections for the building. With that, I think that at least at this point, the Historic Preservation Board is happy with the plans as proposed, and certainly wanted to share that with the town board to get your thoughts and feelings, to see if you guys were happy with it as well. It would still need to go back to the Historic Preservation Board, have a formal application made as far as the certificate of appropriateness, of which I would think could be done at their next meeting.
So to confirm, I think when Bergman presented this, there were options for fieldstone and vertical siding. We didn't see different colors of vertical siding, but this new rendering eliminates the fieldstone entirely.
Correct.
And the vertical siding orientation is the same. They've now just recommended or wanting to approve a different color.
Yes, the Historic Preservation Board, their request was to have, or I guess their preference was to have vertical siding, but to be a darker color at the recommendation of Barrow Architecture.
I mean, I defer to the historical committee on this and the preservation. I think they've done a lot of
Yes.
like, research and know far more than me. So I'm fine with the aesthetics. If they can move towards the certificate of approval, I'm fine.
And I'd say even
Sure.
subsequent to that, I can also work with Bergman to have a proposal drafted to actually finalize the schematic design, the engineer, the engineered drawings, the topography, the layout, the site design for what it would be, through basically the construction documentation, so that we can come back, that could be approved, they can work on that with the idea that we would have a bid package to
One
be able to
package.
go out and bid and
Perfect.
actually get this done.
Were you making a motion there, Ms. Lee?
Yeah, and I did, I wanted to just double check before I misremember it again. The Historic Preservation Board did submit a memo to the board last week on this. I kind of.
They did.
They did.
Yes, and thank you for that.
I know you kind of summarized a lot of it, but it was a formal memo, which I'm giving great deference for. So with that, I'll make the motion that we, for that resolution to be prepared. Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Drawe,
Aye.
Kohl,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
All aye.
Good, happy to see that moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Tate.
Thank you.
And next up is a proposal here, you're looking for do some sewer work with, possibly with some ARPA funding. Can you share that with us?
Another exciting topic. Maybe that might be the best one to start with. So as we have sewers, sanitary sewers throughout the town of varying ages, we have noticed, a lot of the oldest, as they used a combination of concrete pipe, clay tile, certainly not as good of a fitting joint as you would find with common plastic pipe. And just with mature tree growth, we've noticed a lot of issues where we were getting roots actually coming through those joints. They're then thriving off of the sewage and the bacteria within, and then ultimately causing backups. Sometimes they're even causing those joints to separate, and then we end up having I&I infiltration, which ends up putting additional groundwater into our sewers and sometimes overwhelming our pump stations. With that, wanted to kind of take a look at the overall town in some of the most problematic areas that we're spending a significant amount of time just working on doing our daily maintenance, whether it be flushing, whether it be root cutting, televising, and kind of as noted on this plan, there's 5 different sections that show up in orange. So there's one on Creek Street that Mark was circling, one on Embry just below that. There's one that crosses through the swampland heading north across Shoecraft rather. And then there's a kind of a western section of Wayland Road as well as an eastern section of Wayland Road closest to Dublin. To help with some of the root issues and the joints, really the easiest solution would be to do a cured in place pipe liner, where there's companies that actually drop, it's a fiberglass liner, they blow it inside out from one manhole to the next, and then they use steam to actually cure that in place. It ends up holding the exact shape and size of the pipe. They can then, once it's cured, they can come back in, they can actually cut out the lateral protrusions, and then you have a nice smooth pipe with absolutely no joints. So looking at these and kind of prioritizing, Mark can pull up the kind of the breakdown, certainly prioritized just by the issues that we've come up with, as well as the access and feasibility. All of these locations were pulled just because there is very limited, if any, access. So Shoecraft being the top priority because it is going back through the swamp. It's not, other than where it actually crosses the road, it's hundreds of feet back into the woods where we really can't get to that if there was ever an issue. Similar with the kind of the others. Creek Street, there is a portion that is within backyards, but most of it is roadside. We do have some some issues, and we're spending a lot of time cutting roots out of there, but it is the most accessible. So kind of from top to bottom, they are ranked in priority just for what's the most difficult to deal with. Again, the costs, as you see in the right column, do not include any mobilization fee, any sewer bypassing fee, or cleaning fees. I was able to pull the unit pricing off of the county contract bid form. The mobilization, the bypassing, and any cleaning would be on an hourly rate as needed for each location. So at least it does give kind of a minimum price for what it would take. We could certainly help with any cleaning of that, but in total, it's about 17, at least between these 5 locations, and there are certainly others within town, these being probably the 5 biggest and most problematic. In total, it is about 17,000 feet worth of sewer, or 3.2 miles, which in the grand scheme of things may seem like a lot. However, it's only about 1% of the town's total sanitary sewer infrastructure.
Mr. Tait, oh, I'm sorry, you're not.
Yeah, and
you're not
we're just going to note that between these 5, just again, putting it into perspective, it would be about $750,000 to $1 million just to be able to line these 5 being 1% of the town's total, but we're spending way more than 1% of our town's resources and time just trying to maintain these areas.
Would this be the first of this kind of work that you've done, or?
We have done this before. We've done it in select spot locations. We've done some where it's a 3 or 4 foot long patch over a single joint that we've had issues with. We're actually looking to do one over in the mobile home park for a sewer trestle bridge that spans the valley. I want to say it was probably 3 years ago now, we did one over on Parkview Drive for a storm sewer that actually went kind of down over the hillside, down to the swamp area, directly across from our pump station, where the actual bottom of the pipe was rotting out and causing some erosion on the hillside.
So obviously this has solved a lot of the issues, the maintenance
Yes.
issues that you were having.
Yep. The county put out a bid because you don't need to dig the pipe up. They could pop one manhole, they blow the liner straight down to the next, they clamp it off, cure it in place. There's no digging, no restoration. You don't need to have access to all of it. A lot of these spots, as I noted, they're within backyards or side yards where we may not be able to physically fit an excavator. The sewers were installed prior to the houses even being built.
I'm intrigued to know how they cut the opening for the ladder, but I'll call you tomorrow because I'm sure nobody else really wants to hear about that. But what's the impact on the residents in that area? Is it a brief disruption? Is it,
Really, the residents would not notice anything. Again, depending on how long of a stretch they were doing, there may be the need to do some sewer bypassing. If it's a short stretch and you can complete it within an hour or two, there may be capacity within the pipe, and depending on the flow, that you can plug that off, let it back up within the pipe, but to a level that it's not going to actually back up into houses.
Eric, question for you on that. Once we slip line the sewer, that area, does it need to be cleaned? Is it cleaned once and it won't happen again?
You would still do some routine flushing every so often, but your friction coefficient of the inside of the pipe is going to be a lot smoother than that of concrete or of clay tile, with the idea that you're not going to have any debris building up on the sides.
Gotcha. Okay. What are you smiling at?
I don't know that I need to hear any more about friction in sewer pipes tonight. I think the week of Christmas, I think we remember there was a sewer incident, right, where we were all called, and that impacted residents significantly the week of Christmas, right? And I think several months ago with heavy rainfall, other sewer lines near the town hall burst, and it caused flooding and damage to our areas.
And that's one of the areas.
Yeah, I don't see it in this line, but I think, again, the need is clear. I think the action item is you're requesting a portion of ARPA funding. Can we get to the numbers of what? Are you looking to cover that in full? What are the numbers that you're seeking?
Selfishly, I can spend as much as you'd be willing to allocate.
Let me rephrase. What are the numbers that you're reasonably seeking based on the write-up?
And again, as I had kind of prioritized these from top to bottom, I'm thinking even if I could get, the top 3 or 4 of these completed, at least that's a start.
Okay.
We do budget some money within the budget each year to be able to tackle some
Sure.
of these projects.
Sure. So,
I'm for a realistic number, I'm thinking 400,000 to 500,000 would be a huge help.
I'm just trying to recall the numbers of our ARPA award. You probably have it.
Already, so what we've estimated already potentially is to spend about 1.6 on the Shadow Pines infrastructure. We have already spent, things we have spent on, we're in the process of doing the LED streetlights for $450,000. So that's actually the only thing we've actually had in the process of paying for. So after that, we're looking at that, and that, if you looked at, and the other thing we had allotted for was the town center, the Four Corners, $100,000. That equals about 2.5. We still have another, so we allotted 1.1. We've allotted, we still have another, we've allotted 1.19866 in 2021, and they received the next 1.9. So we really have a 3.825 is what we're looking at. So we still have we still have over $1 million left to allot out.
So I have a question. I'm looking for that quickly. The sidewalk project, am I remembering correctly that for whatever reasons that was not able to be completed this year on time?
Correct.
Yes, Tim and I have been working, trying to find a contractor that would be able to, I guess, be capable of doing the stamped concrete work, but also the bigger difficulty's been finding one that does prevailing wage work.
Okay.
As we are obligated to
Right,
do
right,
that.
right.
We have found a contractor, at least one that is willing and able to do that work, but said that just from a timing-wise standpoint, it was unable to be done this year, but they'd certainly be interested in bidding on that with the idea that they could start next spring.
Okay, and I just want to discuss the legality of this question. But if folks recall, I was not as enthused about the stamped concrete project when this became before the board in 2021. I thought there were other pressing, more infrastructure needs like sewage and other restroom facilities, et cetera. So given that it could not have been completed in this calendar year as allotted, and now that we have a more pressing need, and we did have incidents in the last 6 months related to sewer, would the board consider reallocating the dollar amounts earmarked for the stamped concrete and moving it towards this request? And again, relying on council as to how that be drafted.
This is just estimated. This was just an estimated, so we have not, you're
We
correct.
earmarked it, though. The
Earmarked it,
resolution
sure.
was for that
But
project.
Pete, you can answer that too.
I don't know, I
I
wasn't,
think it's,
that was before my time, I don't know if the money was actually appropriated, I think.
No.
So, yeah, so if it wasn't appropriated,
it doesn't matter.
yeah.
I-
So you should be able to
We are,
shift,
we are able to move that.
should be able to shift it.
Is that a separate conversation, or do you want to do an amendment to
So,
what?
my position would be, I think, I'm just trying to think of calling it the sewer project. I don't know. What this need, I think, has greater importance and impact to residents. Again, if it were to not be maintained appropriately, so I would be. I would make a motion that we award
500,000.
ARPA funding, yes, and I would make a secondary motion to amend the earmarking of funds towards the stamped concrete and allocating that specific dollar amount towards this project.
I second that.
Fair enough, yes. And what is there a dollar amount you'd like to propose that we?
He was saying between 400 and 500,000.
Well, the total cost was $250,000. You said up to $1 million?
3/4 of.
Three-quarters to up
Three-quarters.
to $1 million, not include, or it's 700 and, based on their numbers and
So
my
if we don't,
measurements. You're at $750,000. I'm thinking if you wanted to do all 5 of these spots, it would be closer to a full $1 million.
But we could also just get started on this.
Yes.
Mr. Tait would love to just get started on
Yes.
a portion of this too.
Okay, then for just simplicity for numbers, I would make the motion that we allocate $500,000 total towards the sewer project, with a portion of that being the full dollar amount, again, whatever that 300-something dollar amount was of the stamped concrete, for that to be reallocated, and then any remainder to be taken from the remaining pool of ARPA funds.
Second.
Okay.
That's good. That's good.
Okay.
Would like a roll call vote, please?
Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
So
All
we'll
aye.
write that up, and we'll have Mr.
I guess and I'm going to refer to council on this, I don't believe that would require a formal resolution now until we actually had a contract in place, and you would specify within the contract that it was discussed at this meeting, or I guess reference within that, a resolution that you're awarding the contract, and at this meeting, it was discussed about the use of ARPA funding in a
Yeah, so you're not going out to bid because it's on a, because it's
It'd be
on
on
a contract.
contract, so I would still need to reach out to, the particular company, ask them to prepare a formal proposal for me. I'm going off of just their unit numbers, to have a formal proposal to do it.
And then when you have that
The
formal
doesn't
proposal,
necessarily
do a-
need to come back
do
to
a
the board,
resolution.
but because of the dollar amount, I would at least want to memorialize that via resolution.
Yeah, I'd want to put
appropriate
it in
the
a
money,
resolution. Yeah,
you know.
so when you get the contract,
Yes.
come back with a formal resolution to authorize the supervisor to sign the contract and appropriate the funds
Yep.
in that resolution.
Okay, very good.
Fair enough. Good.
So just to clarify,
Sure.
what are we doing today?
We're,
I would say the board is
Board is-
requesting that I get a
Requesting-
formal proposal
From
to
Mr. Tait.
move forward with these projects.
You can spend up to $500,000.
Using the ARPA funds, right. And we're going to allot part of that ARPA funds, the $100,000 that was for the stamped concrete, we're going to move that into the
Back in the
sewer
pool.
slip lining
Okay.
project for the ARPA funds. Probably have to reword that a little bit, but. Fair
All
enough.
right, we're good.
So, okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, next on the agenda here is the Ellens Creek Restoration Project rebid, and that's back to you, Mr. Valentine.
Yeah, hopefully mine's much more straightforward and easier. We went out to bid in the spring. We didn't get any bidders. We'd like to take advantage of going out this fall. So hopefully we can catch people kind of before they get busy. So just looking to put a resolution in for September to have this board authorize us to go out to bid in October for the Ellens Creek Restoration Project.
Yeah, I think this was just a timing issue of not getting any bids. So unless there are comments, I'll make a motion that we make a resolution for the September meeting for this to be rebid.
And I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
All aye.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll get some bids this time.
I'm hoping. We've been talking to companies. They were just busy this summer, so we've kind of tried to keep them apprised of what's going on. So we're hopeful that
a good
if we get it out
project.
early, then
You'll
we'll
be
have
first in line.
we'll be first in line.
Okay, thank you. And also, next on, Mr. Tait, Valentine, sidewalk contractor bidding authorization again. This is another.
So similarly, our contractor we had under contract was a 3-year period that expired last year. This year, we kind of saw how the contract went. We reached out to the county bidder. They've just been busy all year, and we've not been able to get, them to come to Penfield to do sidewalk work for us. So again, we want to go out earlier, go out this fall, late fall, put our sidewalk work out to bid for next year. Again, hopefully then we're first in line and get a contractor in and get them locked in early on. So normally we've either gone off the county bid price or done our own bid. This year we tried going off the county bid price, contacted them, and similar to a lot of people, they can't get enough concrete, can't get enough workers, a litany of issues. So again, we're trying to kind of get ahead of it, and so this is just an authorization we'll put a resolution in to put this out to bid in October, November, get a sidewalk contractor on board and get us at front of the line.
Okay. I have a motion.
Sounds reasonable. I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. No discussion. Everyone's good. Roll call vote, please.
Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
All aye.
We have no informational items before us. Board, we have no, is there any old business? Seeing none, any new business? Seeing none, our next work session will be September 20th, 2023, right here. I will adjourn this work session at 8:06 p.m., and I'd like to thank you to staff that's here tonight, Mr. Valentine, Mr. Tait, Mr. Masterton. Thank you very much for your time, and also to PCTV. Downstairs, Tyler, thank you again. Thank you for the audience, sharing, coming to listen. Thank you. Have a nice evening.